Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Just About Managing. We're really pleased today that actually it's our first ever guest on the podcast. We're going to be later on speaking with Dorothy Hamilton. We've all individually, collectively worked with Dorothy at some point during our career, and she's someone that we individually really respect in terms of her management and leadership abilities. So it's great to be able to have that conversation with her and actually to be able to share with you her views and hopefully some of her opinions and wisdom as well. So without further ado, let's get into the actual core of the show. So Dorothy Hamilton, welcome to Just About Managing. We're honoured to have you on here as our first guest today. We thought about actually introducing you ourselves, but actually the consensus amongst the three of us was it probably better for you to do it yourself, and then we can then pepper you with questions and hopefully have a good chat about your views on life and perspective on management and leadership and how you've seen that evolved and how that's impacted throughout your life and right through from work to family and your kind of extracurricular interests as well. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm a true fan of the Just About Managing podcast. So the honour is all mine to be here. It's great to be back chatting to you guys. So just as an introduction, so Dorothy Hamilton. So I have been in the financial services industry for a long time, over 30 years. I actually left school when I was 16 and I went to get an office junior job at a pensions administrators called Noble Lowndes at the time. Then my proper financial services career started at Scottish Amicable Investment Managers when I was 17. I was in the banking team there, and actually at the time, the team did their banking exams, but I only had 2 hires at the time, and you needed higher maths. And so I actually went to night school to get my higher maths so that I could do my banking exams. So my banking exams became my degree as I did them at Scottish Amicable. And then the Prudential took over Scottish Amicable in 1997 it was, and I transferred to a third-party administrator with the work. And then I stayed there for about a year and a half. And when I reflect back, I think that the reason I didn't really settle, and I think the reason was because I was changing. I was part of an investment manager, and then I was changing over to a third-party administrator, and you know, just the difference in cultures really came through, and I understand that now. But at the time, I just felt that something wasn't right. But then in 1999, HSBC, then Midland Security Services, set up in Edinburgh. And so I went to work there and was there for 24 years. Left last year, worked my way up to managing director. So through a lot of support and guidance from a lot of people, including some who are sitting around this room, I was able to progress my career there. And then I took 10 months off, which was amazing. I have to say, after working since I've been 16, being able to have 10 months off was amazing. And then I started a new role at M&G in March, which has been amazing. Really great team, great place, and brilliant to get an opportunity to be back in the kind of front office asset management side of the business again.
What my first question I had for you was actually, I know we've spoken, and you your time off was a really reflective period for you, but actually that walking back, that first kind of week in the new job at M&G, you know, what was it like in terms of, I'm sure there's a whole mix of emotions, but actually having that much, I guess the time to prepare and actually think about, what I'm good at, what I like, etc. Did you feel going into it that it was a different Dorothy, or tell us about it?
So I think really what was weird was it was weirdly familiar. So you'd been off for 10 months, but actually going back into a team environment with, in different organisation, but at a leadership level, it's a lot of the same challenges that we've got across the board. And so therefore, and actually, it was weird. You would think I would be nervous, but I wasn't. And maybe that was because I'd spent time off. I had got to know so many brilliant people while I was off. And actually my network during the time I was off increased, which was amazing, because I went to find out about lots of different organisations, what they were doing, because sometimes when you're focused on a particular role, you don't get a chance to do that. And so actually it was great to go out. So I didn't feel nervous, but I was excited. So I think that I realised during my time that I'm an eternal learner, and the chance to learn something new and come to an organisation and make a difference was really exciting to me. And being part of a team and the people around about you are really important to me. And anybody who knows me would say that. And so therefore, being back in that environment, I think it felt really, really comfortable.
Nice. Lee, go on.
I would definitely echo that, Dorothy, right? In terms of, think of Dorothy, you think of people, you think of teams, think of doing things in the right way. And also, you obviously think of selfies. So it was really cool to see Selfie 2.0 come up on like LinkedIn like over the last 2 weeks, right?
Absolutely, yes. And I will be hopefully getting a selfie here at the end as well, so you won't be getting away without getting one.
Well, we are honoured, right? We're in the gang. All good.
Superb. But so, tell us about. One of the questions I really wanted to dive in with you on was scouts, because
Oh yes,
and I know you and I have touched on scouting before, but and I was heavily involved in scouting in my 20s, and so I've got quite a perspective in terms of how that shaped my, in some ways, and helped guided my career, and how it eased me into management. But talk to me about scouting, because I'm not, because I can't remember in terms of, is it a more recent thing for you, or a lifelong thing, or and how, what you get out of it, and how, and how that's impacted your career.
Well, I've been a scout leader for a long time. So actually, I was a venture scout, and I met my husband at Venture Scouts.
Did you? Wow.
So it's definitely ingrained in our family. And so actually, it's like these things where once you're in, and that's you. But actually, I really love scouts. And it's I've been involved in the different age groups, the younger ones and the older ones. And I think that, well, firstly, I think I'm just a big kid myself. So, I get into all the games and do all the fun things with them. But I really the thing I love about it is that when you take kids out of their kind of comfort zones, and you see this most when you take them to camps, is that the best part of it is when you see them trying to overcome a challenge. And so you're there as a leader and you're trying to guide, encourage, support, but not do it for them. So they need to do it themselves. And actually, when you reflect on what a leader is, it is, in business, it's the same thing. So really, you're trying to step away and help people learn and do it for themselves. And so it's absolutely the same. And I think that again, I said earlier, I'm an eternal learner. And I think even for me, I learn things. And communication, I guess, is the other one with scouting as well that can be applied. So you've got 24 6-year-olds and you want them all to do the same thing at the same time. You've got to be very, very clear on your communication. And sometimes it's not clear. I've fallen down all those traps where you're like, we would just, so when I say, and then of course they're all running about mad. So yeah, communication has to be very clear in scouting as well. But yeah, I think it's a great thing for kids to get involved in, and I love doing it.
What's the difference between? Oh, sorry, John.
Sorry, Lee. Go on, carry on.
What's the difference between 24 6-year-olds and a management team, Dorothy?
This is where what is the difference between? I'll let you. What do you think the difference is, Lee? Between I've done a classic coaching thing there for the question, right? Absolutely. Yeah. What do you think that would be, Lee?
Not much. But,
yeah. Yes. The same principles. Same principles.
Yeah,
I'm not allowed to take.
Space.
I'm not allowed to take my whistle to work. That's that's the only that's the difference.
That whole space around getting people comfortable around when they don't know is just like amazing. And yeah, that's totally relevant. The proper flashbacks of when I was a cub there, marshmallows on a stick and abseiling down what rockfall and like all that kind of like stuff. It's just brilliant.
It's not just for scouts as well. Did you see my LinkedIn post about me driving the minibus?
I did.
So that was the first time I did that. I tell you, those kids were the safest kids on the road that night. See, when you have to take 17 other people's kids where you're like, nothing's happening to these kids. You didn't want to be behind me in a windy Scottish road that night. Driving at 20 miles an hour.
Oh dear. But yeah, I think that the parallels of working with children and whether that's in education or in scouting or other voluntary areas, actually the reward you get back, but actually in terms of those parallels of development is phenomenal, I think, and often it kind of gets overlooked in terms of what people can actually achieve out of that.
Do you know what I really do as well, though? And the bit that I probably missed out there was that, see, when they do it, the joy and the celebration and is amazing. And then normally there's people round about them taking part in that celebration as well. And it's absolutely teamwork. It's like when we do something well, everybody's behind you and everybody's celebrating together. And so that comes across as well through Scouts. And I love that part of it.
Can I ask you about your management career and development? Mm-hmm. So were you an accidental manager, or was that always the evolution and plan, or was it kind of foisted upon you quite early in your career?
So it's kind of like a natural progression for me moving into management. So I became a team leader when I was relatively, part of the team, a team leader, then a team manager, then the department manager, then a wider role, then a wider role. So actually over my career, it has been quite natural. Harder the more senior you get, though harder to progress, and so there's less opportunities at those senior levels, and so therefore being a bit more focused on your own development needs in order to progress in those senior roles. So yeah, quite natural. I probably like being in charge. I'm allowed to say that now. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I'm not allowed to
We'll
say
let
that.
you.
Yeah. But I think that I get a lot out of leading a team. It feels good, and that then creates excitement and energy in me, which brings the team with me as well.
What was going through that sort of management journey, Dorothy, whether it be from the first role or the wider teams picked up, or moving up the organisation, or even the transition out of an organisation, taking a break and back in? What was the hardest transition for you in each of those, do you think?
So the hardest transition was changing from being a manager of a team to a leader. And like there's lots on this, but to actually go through it is very much like, and it's like that scout leader thing we were just talking about, where you're helping and supporting get it done. But as a leader, you can't do everything. And we managed in lots of different countries. So therefore, this was across the world, activities were getting done. And so it's really about that clear direction. So, and that's what I think is really, really important from a leadership point of view. It moved from being, I know how to do it, and don't get me wrong, there's a bit of me that always loves going back into the detail and getting the sleeves rolled up and getting into it. But actually, the leadership for me is about everyone understanding the direction we're going in. And then it's like, right, okay, I know what I have to do in order to deliver against that objective. And so, yeah, I think that is, and certainly, I've been a mentor and coach for a number of people myself, and I know that transition is the most difficult, and because I've been through it as well myself. And the expectations of you become different. You change job. One day you were a manager, the next day you're a leader. And the expectations of your line managers change at that point as well, because the role is different. And so I think that you have to, make a conscious effort in having that support and guidance round about you to help you through that transition. And as I say, I had a lot of mentors throughout the years who really, really helped me through that period.
Excellent. It's one thing we've talked about quite a bit in here, is that transition from management to leader, and the differences there. But no, really well explained. Thanks, Dorothy.
Nice. So I was we've absolutely rattled through this already, Dorothy, and we've kind of been throwing questions at you, but I wondered whether you wanted to throw any questions at us. Well, mostly not me, mostly Lee and Chris, to be honest. But,
Well, I suppose maybe you could tell me a little bit about the coaching and why you think that's an important part. Like, it's something that I really, really enjoyed doing. So I went through the accreditation for coaching myself, and really enjoyed it. And so maybe you could just tell me a little bit about, how you've been applying that over the last 10 months.
that's a fact. Well, how long have we got? it's interesting because and what's fascinating is in theory, we've all started at the same point, but the three of us have kind of evolved in different directions in terms of almost how we're taking career number 2 as well. But yeah, I'll shut up because I've spoken a lot, and I'll let Lee and Chris talk.
Go on, Chris. Do you want to start on this one?
Well, I love helping people, right? So on reflection, doing all those corporate jobs, because there was quite a few different ones in different places. I think I was coaching teams without being like the expert in the process for a long time, and I really enjoyed that work. Especially when it got to like the management teams and the strength and the bench. So my journey in terms of coaching has been quite hazy, right, to start with. I know I want to get involved in, people, but it's only now that when you explore, they actually try and work out actually, well, what does it mean for me? Actually, what I'm trying to do through Infinity is to bring a network of coaches to help teams and people bring out the best in them, right? So what I'm trying to do, and we're doing, is attracting talented coaches, and now what we're going to do is help organizations fix problems. So big picture problems like data and AI, execution challenges like around risk, cost, offshoring, and then around that, things around teams and individuals and people. So I'm now quite clear that actually I want to assemble like a super team of Avenger coaches, basically. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, so I'm kind of like Professor X with no hair, right? Just without the wheelchair for now. Okay, but like that's what I'm trying to do. And yeah, it is. Yeah, John, you're right. We are all trying to do like slightly different things, or we've got different takes on what we're doing. I really enjoy, if I'm honest, the mentoring coaching side and helping getting on the pitch as well as the exploration. So it's not strictly coaching. I love getting results, right? So that's me. Lee, here's the ball.
I think very, very similar, to be honest, and similar to what you said, Dorothy, there with going through the accreditation in HSBC. We went through it. Is I really enjoyed it, and doing it, I say properly now, so not doing it on a side of desk activity, if you like. Now, I probably shouldn't say this after 25 years in the industry, but it's the first time that something's probably felt natural to me in a 25-year career. And it doesn't feel like hard work. It feels like I enjoy it. And this, together with the leadership development, now, like I say, natural is probably the right word. It just feels like a natural fit. 25 years in technology, similar to what Chris mentioned there, I was never the expert in the room, so I was never a technologist to that extent. It was always about leading teams, getting the best out of them.
He managed to fake it with all us all those years.
I know, exactly.
I believe it.
Yeah, I did. I heard that in one of your podcasts. I was like, wait a minute here. I like it. Oh no, it is. It's actually really, really important, and I think it's one of those things where, I think it's become more popular, and whether it's popular or accepted that people, can benefit from, a coaching relationship, whether that's inside work, outside work or not. I think that there's been a real turn of people accepting, and it was really interesting for me. Of course, maybe it doesn't take you too long to realise that I'm more a talker than a listener. But there was a definite moment for me and that around the coaching training about active listening. So are you really listening? And that has stayed with me through my jobs that I've done since, because it really is such an important part of leadership, is listening. And that's maybe a difference in the change between manager and leader as well, is that you move into this more listening mode. So it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Do you know there was another question? Am I allowed to ask another question?
No,
Of
only
course
one,
you can.
only one.
Because there was another question that I was thinking about that Chris had mentioned to me was, what will the best teams be doing in 2030, right? And I actually really love that question because for me, and I was going to say, I'll give you my answer and then you can see. I would really like to hear what you guys think as well. But I actually think in 2030, we will be appreciating and understanding the superpower that is diverse teams. Right? Because I think that there's everyone, we can talk about how diverse teams make high performing teams. But I think that unlocking it is actually needs to be quite purposeful, and is actually a skill. And when I was thinking about it, I was thinking like there's 3 things the hiring managers need to change, maybe their mindsets on who they need to come and work there. You've then got leaders understanding and knowing the strengths of their team, so where to put them. And then you've got leaders of those teams being able to accept those different perspectives as well. And I really, really love the question because it made me think forward. And the way it was written is, what will the best teams be doing in 2030? But I'm wondering what you guys are thinking about that.
It's fun. I was at an event with a client yesterday, and we were having dinner last night, and we actually got into this conversation around the next, almost like next generation. And actually, if you kind of think 2030, you're gonna have this a real depth of management and leadership coming through from your Gen Z as well. Then, and I think there's some real different identity and behavioral differences in terms of, across, as always, across generations. And I think I think business that will thrive is actually adapting to the shifts in the generations in terms of ways of working and particularly ways of communication. And I believe that that understanding, and it, to your point, is the you were saying, Dorothy, around active listening is going to be some of the key points in terms of how people are adapting to different ways of communication, different types of management styles as we evolve through, is going to be absolutely key in terms of how a business will thrive is accepting and understanding that. But Chris?
Well, the best teams will be seizing opportunity, right? And I think the biggest change, like if we look at like the footprint, is really around the growth of China, India, those countries. It's just huge. So India's now got the biggest population in the world, 1.4 billion people. Half of those people are less than 25. It's mad. There's more people in India than the whole of the Western world put together just in one country. Okay, so best teams will be able to seize opportunities, connect to, and work across those geographies, right? China, India, different places. And the demands will be very different, and those growth markets. So I think regulations in those spaces will need to change over time. But what's interesting around those kind of like growth economies, after spending like time in the Middle East, right, is that the better countries that accelerate in those spaces, they are not scared of and actually embrace bringing in talent and teams from anywhere around the world, right? And that's really exciting. So I think being open to new ideas and open to new partnerships, yes, the existing relationships are hugely important, but actually, if you really want to, take advantage of like scalable growth, data, AI, powerful stuff, then the ability to make that dent in those like mega markets, yeah, it's like a real tipping point. I think it'd be really different in like 20, 30 years than where we are now. So for me, it's got to be. I mean, most because I spent time in those countries, right? Like it's just, people just so hungry to get good and then get great, right? It's just like really different kind of like pace, acceleration. So I think the best teams will be seizing those opportunities and moving with the time and getting help to get faster, right?
Yeah.
It's
changing. But yeah, I think you're right. So how you embrace that is fascinating. Rapid fire question for Dorothy. Top tip for resilience.
Top tip for resilience. So there's this saying, "This too shall pass." So it's not going to last forever. So we've been in difficult situations, tough times. It won't last forever. Just concentrate on what you're doing today, what's happening today, and move forward one step at a time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And final question, final rapid fire question for you. What advice did you give to your younger self when you started out managing?
So for me, it would be take more chances, have more confidence in yourself and your decisions. I think that a lot of the time we analyze and we wonder, and when actually, we know the right answer, go for it. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. We can try something different. And I think having the confidence to do that is important.
Brilliant.
Top advice.
And any closing questions for our amazing guests, Chris or Lee?
Got one quick one, Dorothy, just related to, because you're a big runner.
Well, don't big me up too much, Chris. Wait a minute here.
She runs.
It's an important part of your
I
day.
enjoy running.
Where's your favourite run and why?
My favourite run is actually in London. So I have been spending so much time in London. So actually, my favourite run, which you will find me on during the week when I'm in London, is going across Tower Bridge, running all the way down the riverbank to the Tate Modern, crossing the Millennium Bridge, where St Paul's is, and then running all the way back up the river to the Tower of London again. And I've been to London lots and lots of times over the years, but there's something still really cool about doing that run. And I love doing it.
Yeah, just make sure you time it so you don't get collided with all the tourists once you get to the summer holidays.
That is true. It's very early in the morning, pre-work that I am out there running, which actually makes it really even nicer because it's lovely and quiet. It's great.
How far is that? About 5K?
Yeah,
is it longer than
that? Just over 5K.
Beautiful, great sights as well. Lee?
I was going to say, you've given advice to your younger self, Dorothy. What advice would you give to us in the podcast?
So, well, same advice I would give to everybody. So I've got three things. I've always got three things when I give advice. So get yourself a good support network. So, I've surrounded myself with people over the years who have been my great supporters, and that's been inside work and outside work. My family are my biggest supporter, and I am doubtful I would have achieved what I did in my career without their support. So definitely get yourself a great support network. Be open to feedback. And I love the question, what do people say about you when you're not in the room? It's such a brave feedback question, but actually what you would get back is really specific and helps you to develop. So really be open to feedback. And of course, the last one is enjoy what you do and have lots of fun. So wherever you are, you'll hear Dorothy laughing somewhere. Open plans offices are not great for my laugh. If people can hear me before they see me. But I think it's really, really important to enjoy what you do and have fun doing it. And we're doing it for a long time. And so therefore, that's important to me.
Brilliant.
Brilliant
Great advice.
Well, yeah, fantastic closing words. Dorothy Hamilton, thank you for being our first Just About Managing guest. We've loved your wisdom, your anecdotes, and your happiness.
Great.
So
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll have you back in a little while further along in our future episodes. So thank you very much.
No problem. Don't forget about my selfie though.
Welcome back, everybody. That was an amazing conversation, and thank you to Dorothy for being our first guest and being bombarded with our questions, and equally bombarding us with a few as well, which was unexpected, but she does like to turn the table. So it was really great, and actually quite thought provoking in terms of some of those parallels. So I'm gonna Lee, what were your kind of takeaway initial thoughts from our conversation with Dorothy?
So I think it was a great conversation. I think that I loved hearing her background, and despite knowing Dorothy for a number of years, there was bits in there I didn't know. So I was intrigued to hear some of those pieces, particularly. The biggest piece for me was actually the question she asked us at the end that she then answered herself, which was about the teams in 2030 and really being able to turn on the magic of diversity, if you like, within those teams. That's where the real power is going to come from.
Yeah.
As we start to build diverse teams, but then really tapping into them and knowing how to turn that on to get the maximum benefit out of diverse teams. So that was the most fascinating piece for me, I think. Great discussion.
Yeah. Chris?
As ever with Dorothy, right? I mean, the one thing that I think came out of that conversation more than anything was just a sense of just how authentic she is as like a leader, right? And a person. So what you see is what you get: a warm person who has been successful by being just a great person to work with. And that whole, when she was talking about, 3 things to do, the fun element definitely came out, but that whole thing around the support network, the mention in the nod to her family and then to all the other mentors, it's just incredibly humble, likable, and like credible, right? It's just like kind of all those things all in one person. Just really good. And I think the bar has been set very high. And that's great, because I think we can all get better from like hearing from like the great leaders that are out there. So just real props to Dorothy for coming on, being brave enough to do that, stretch herself, as she said, even coming on to do that. Probably not as scary as driving a minibus full of like kids back from like the Highlands, but just brilliant. Really, really good, and not surprised that it was new things find every time, right? But like great fun.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. I think my takeaway is Dorothy's passion for life and drive goes through everything that she does, and everybody she works with, and it's kind of a reminder to myself in terms of that, being able to have that. Where she gets her energy from, I just have such admiration for, and to have the time in terms of, driving a serious career, being a mother, and also actively and heavily involved in scouting and playing a real part in that. It's just amazing. And I think her sort of anecdotes around scouting just made me smile, because it's some of my fondest moments, I think, getting involved in the scouts and actually seeing how the enjoyment, but also that which she's particularly talking about learning, and seeing others learn, and how you've got to use those different techniques of that, and that parallel through to managing in the workplace, I think was fantastic. So there we go. We'll wrap up today's episode now. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. We'd love to hear your feedback, suggestions for other people that perhaps we could interview in the future. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Just About Managing. Remember, follow the podcast to wherever you listen to us, whether that be on Apple, Amazon, or Spotify. He's been Lee Smith, he's been Chris Dingle, and I'm John Lloyd, and you've been listening to Just About Managing podcast.